Oops, did I just push you, Gramps? My bad. The floor is wet, son. Be careful, son. The janitor calls me son. Hear that, everybody? I meant no disrespect. Watch the floor, old man. That's all you're good for. Please. I have work to finish. Then work. Shine my belt, janitor. All right then. I clean floors, not belts. You'll clean whatever I say. 12 wins, old man. 12. What do you have? A wet floor and a long memory. Film this. The mop guy thinks he's tough. Smile for the camera, Grandpa. No, sir. Floors are just slippery when you do not watch your step. I never slip. Everyone slips. Some just have not met the floor yet. Ryder Caldwell laughed. 12 wins deep and certain, never knowing the janitor he shoved for fun had trained 3 national champions. Have you ever been laughed at by someone who had no idea who you really were? The lights of Ironclad Performance Center buzzed awake 1 row at a time. Harlan Whitaker unlocked the side door the way he had for years, with a soft click and a quiet nod to the empty room. He filled his bucket. He measured the soap with the care of a chemist. Then he mopped the training floor in long, even arcs that never crossed their own path. Most people clean a floor. Harlan read it. Every scuff told him who trained sloppy, who dragged a tired foot, who favored a bad knee. He knew this gym better than the men who owned it. He was lean as wire rope, with white stubble and hands the color of worn leather. He moved slowly, but never clumsily. Watch him long enough, and strange details surfaced. He never stood with his weight on both heels. He folded his cleaning rags in perfect thirds, corners sharp as paper cranes. When a barbell rolled off a rack one morning, his hand caught it before his eyes seemed to move. A trainer blinked and laughed it off. "Lucky catch," he said. Harlan only nodded. Luck was a word he let other people keep. Home was a small brick house on the east side, paid off and quiet. Inside, the shelves held trophies of an invisible life, not cups or medals, absences. A photograph lay face down on the mantel, dusted weekly, never lifted. In the bedroom closet sat a wooden box with a brass lock. The key hung on a chain around his neck, under his shirt, against his heart, and he had not opened it once. Some nights he sat with the box on his knees. He never turned the key. He just listened to the house breathe. Ryder Caldwell trained at Ironclad like the place owed him rent. A black belt with straight regional wins and a highlight reel. He watched more film of his opponents. The talent was real. That was the problem. Talent without humility is gasoline without a tank. His kicks cracked pads like gunfire, and every crack drew his eyes to the mirror. Members orbited him. Sponsors texted him. Followers replayed his knockouts and called him the future. Ryder agreed with them loudly often. Behind Ryder stood his father, Vaughn Caldwell, a real estate developer whose name sat on half the new towers downtown. Vaughn wrote the largest sponsorship check Ironclad had ever cashed. The gym's manager, Brent Callahan, framed that check like a diploma. Brent had 2 rules: keep the equipment clean and keep the Caldwell happy. Whenever Ryder's jokes turned cruel, Brent studied his clipboard until the laughing stopped. He was not a bad man, people said, just a man whose spine bent toward money. Brooke Delaney worked the front desk and saw everything the cameras saw. She liked Harlan. He remembered birthdays. He left the break room cleaner than he found it. One evening, she watched a young boy from the kids' class punching air in the corner, all elbows in frustration. The boy had stayed late because his mother's shift ran long. His stance was a mess, feet crossed, chin high, balance leaking everywhere. The coaches had gone home. Nobody was watching. Nobody but the janitor. Harlan passed with his mop and paused. He tapped the boy's back foot with the handle. He turned the boy's hips slightly. He lowered the boy's chin with one finger. Then he walked on as if nothing had happened. The boy reset and threw the same punch. It snapped like a whip cracking in an empty room. Brooke froze at the front desk, phone ringing, forgotten in her hand. The boy stared at his own fist. Harlan just pushed his bucket into the dark hallway, humming something low and old. And for the first time, somebody asked the question that would unravel everything. Who taught the floor guy to build a fighter with 2 fingers? Saturday came loud. Ryder Caldwell had just taken another straight win, a second-round knockout across town, and he returned to Ironclad with the trophy and an audience. Members crowded the mats. Phones came out before his jacket did. He replayed his knockout on the gym's big screen twice. Then he got bored. Bored champions go looking for entertainment. and entertainment was pushing a mop along the far wall. What happened next took seconds. Cameras caught all of it. Ryder strolled over, grinning at his followers, and shoved the old man with both hands. Harlan hit the floor hard. His bucket toppled with him, and gray mop water soaked his shirt, his pants, the side of his face. The gym exploded with laughter. "Relax, Gramps. It's just for fun. Somebody get the janitor some floaties." Harlan lay in the spreading puddle for one long breath. Then he rose joint by joint, the way old men rise when pride is the heaviest thing they lift. He did not look at Ryder. He picked up the bucket. He wiped the wet floor sign, and he started mopping the same spot again, in long, even arcs, while phones filmed his soaked back. Only one person in the room was not laughing. The young boy from the kids' class stood by the cubbies, gym bag on his shoulder, watching the man who had fixed his stance get treated like a joke. Harlan caught the boy's eyes for half a second. Then he looked away, because some things hurt worse than a wet shirt. By that night, the clip was everywhere. Ryder posted it with a laughing caption, "Mop man down." Strangers stitched it, mocked the old man's fall, slowed his face for comedy. In the comments, exactly 4 people asked if he was okay. Across town, in a small brick house, Harlan Whitaker sat on the edge of his bed. His wet uniform hung over the tub. The wooden box rested on his knees. For years, the key had stayed warm against his chest and cold to its purpose. Tonight, his thumb traced the brass lock once, twice, then slowly. For the first time since the funeral, Harlan Whitaker turned the key. The box held 3 things: a black belt worn soft and gray at the edges from countless classes, a photograph of 4 people smiling under a banner that read National Championships, and a small phone years out of date kept charged by a habit Harlan never explained to anyone. He looked at all 3 for a long time. He touched none of them. He closed the lid, locked it, and hung the key back around his neck. Ryder Caldwell woke up famous. Not fight famous, internet famous, which is louder and hungrier. Mop Man Down crossed millions of views. His follower count jumped sharply. A supplement brand slid into his messages with an offer. Ryder scrolled the numbers in bed, grinning, and learned the oldest lesson of the algorithm. Cruelty performs. His knockouts took weeks of training camp. The janitor clip took seconds. So when his manager asked what was next, Ryder did not say a title fight. He said, "Give the people a sequel." The sequels came all week. One day, Harlan found his supply cart locked inside the sauna, handles burning hot. Another day, somebody dumped a full tub of protein powder across the lobby he had just finished. Ryder filmed the old man kneeling in the white dust. Another day brought a new game. Ryder blocked the hallway and would not move until Harlan bowed. "Bow to the champ, Gramps. It's tradition." Harlan bowed small and slow, eyes down. The camera loved it. The followers loved it more. Each clip ended the same way with Ryder's laughing face and a caption about respect. Brooke took it to Brent Callahan twice. Twice Brent studied his clipboard. "Boys blow off steam," he said. Harlan has not complained. That part was true. Harlan never complained. But Brooke had started doing something quiet at the front desk. Every night before the security system wiped its footage, she copied the day's files onto a silver hard drive she kept in her car. She did not know why yet. She just knew somebody should. Harlan sat in his truck in the gym parking lot, too tired to drive. He took out the small, outdated phone from the box, one saved voicemail. He had paid the carrier for years to keep that number alive. His thumb knew the path in the dark. "Hey Dad, it's me. We're gassing up outside the city. Be there soon. Coach Whitaker and Champion Whitaker. That's going to look crazy on one trophy. Love you. Watch the door. I'm bringing it home." A young voice, bright as morning. Harlan listened. He did not cry. He had done his crying in rooms this town never saw. He pressed save the way he always pressed save, and went home. The numbers dipped. The internet was getting bored, and Ryder could feel it like a dropping temperature. Pranks were appetizers. The audience wanted a main course. That night, he posted a poll to his followers. Should the janitor fight me? Most said yes. Ryder stared at the result with a strange heat in his chest. Somewhere under the grin, in a room of himself he never visited, a small voice asked why an old man's calm bothered him this much. He muted it. The gym was packed for open mats. Ryder waited until the room was full. Then he killed the music. "Everybody gather up. Special event. He dragged a chair to the center and stood on it. Phone lights finding him like stage beams. Ironclad, give it up for the real star of my page, Mopman himself. Laughter rolled. Cameras turned to the far wall where Harlan stood with his cart. Greywater going still in the bucket. Brooke at the desk, quietly angled security camera. Ryder hopped down and crossed the floor. Oops! Did I just shove you, Gramps? My bad. The push was lighter this time, staged for the lens. Harlan steadied his cart. Floor's wet, son. Be careful. Careful? Hit me, old man. Right here. Free shot. I do not fight, sir. Of course not. Mops do not fight back, do they? Please let me finish my work. Get on the mat. Seconds with me, or kneel and shine my belt. I am an old man, son. Then you will break easy. Swing at me. I will close my eyes. Phones pressed closer. Somebody chanted fight, and the chant caught. Film this. The janitor is scared. Say it, Gramps. Say you are scared. Ryder peeled Cash from a money clip and slapped it on the ring apron. Cash says you cannot touch me, old man. Keep your money. Buy yourself a soft mattress. A mattress? Why? Because everyone falls, son. Some just have not met the floor yet. The gym went strange and quiet, the way rooms do when a script stops being followed. Ryder blinked, then laughed louder to cover the silence. Tomorrow, Mopman versus the champ. Be here. The crowd roared back to life, and the moment was content again, safe and shareable. Brent Callahan appeared at the edge of the mats, took one look at the money on the apron, and walked back into his office. Brooke watched Harlan push his cart toward the supply room. His hands were steady, his arcs stayed even. Only his jaw had changed, set like a door finally closing. In the supply room, Harlan sat on an upturned crate among the bleach and the spare mats. He pulled out his phone, the new one, the one with a calendar. Tomorrow's date stared back at him in small gray letters. His chest tightened around an old wound. Of all the days that boy could have picked for his circus, Ryder Caldwell had chosen the anniversary of Dylan Whitaker's death. Seconds, the boy had said. Harlan closed the calendar and stared at the wall for a long time. Sunday came up gray and soft. Before the sun cleared the trees, Harlan stood in Green Lawn Cemetery with 2 folding chairs and 1 cup of coffee. He set a chair by each stone. Beloved wife, Dylan Whitaker, forever young. Harlan drank half the coffee and poured the rest into the grass. They want me on the mat today, baby, he told the stone. On his day, the wind moved the maples. He turned to Dylan's stone and sat a long while. I am not going to hurt that boy, he said finally. I am going to introduce him to himself. From the truck, he made 1 phone call, a number he had not dialed in years. It rang twice. Garrett, it is Coach. Silence, then a breath that sounded like a man sitting down. Coach Whitaker, my God. Today, Ironclad Performance Center. I need a witness. A witness to what? Seconds. At home, Harlan opened the closet and took down a canvas bag stiff with use. He folded his old gi into it, white gone cream with age. He left the black belt in the box. He would not wear rank against a child. Defense only, he promised the empty house. Not 1 strike. The parking lot of Ironclad was already full, and the internet was waiting for a beating. It would get a lesson instead. Noon arrived like a held breath. Inside Ironclad, people pressed around the main mat and thousands more floated in Ryder's live stream, numbers climbing in the corner of his screen. Somebody had printed a banner, the Janitor Challenge. Ryder bounced in his corner in a fresh team jacket, rolling his neck, playing to the cameras. The Cash sat under a water bottle at the mat's edge. Brent Callahan stood where managers stand when they want to be seen and not blamed. The crowd parted, laughing, phones high. Harlan Whitaker walked through in a cream-colored gi, no belt, feet bare. The laughter stuttered. Something about the way he walked confused the room. No shuffle now. Each step landed quiet and exact, weight pouring from foot to foot like water finding level. In the back row, a broad-shouldered man in a gray hoodie lowered his coffee and went very still. Nice pajamas, Gramps, Ryder called, arms wide. You get those from the lost and found. They were a gift. Seconds. Try to survive. Seconds, Harlan agreed. Try to listen. Listen to what? Your own breathing, son. It is about to get loud. Brent pushed forward as referee, raised an awkward hand and dropped it. Somebody hit a phone timer. Seconds began. Ryder came out fast, feinted a jab, and fired his trademark right cross, the one that had folded men. It hit nothing. Harlan was simply not where the fist arrived, his head off the line. No more, no less. The gym heard it before it understood it. The whisper of bare feet on vinyl, the snap of Ryder's sleeve cutting empty air. A low hook whistled through the space where an old man's ribs had been a half-second earlier. A head kick swept over a head that had already bowed politely beneath it. Harlan never blocked. Blocking is for people who arrive late. He turned, shifted, breathed, and the mat under him made almost no sound at all. Nobody in the building was laughing. Ryder's breathing got loud, just as promised. He swung harder, which made him slower, which made the air he hit feel heavier. In the live stream chat, the jokes were dying mid-sentence. Someone typed, "Is this real?" Someone else typed, "The janitor is a ghost." The view counter rolled upward. Ryder heard none of it. All he heard was his own lungs and the soft, patient slide of two bare feet that would not stay still. Ryder stopped boxing and shot for a double-leg takedown, diving at the old man's knees. What happened next would be replayed millions of times in slow motion. Harlan dropped his hips, caught the incoming shoulders, and turned. Just turned. Ryder's own speed did the rest, lifting him over a quiet hip and laying him flat on his back. The sound of the landing went through the gym floor like a dropped piano. People inhaled at once. Nobody exhaled. Ryder stared at the ceiling, lungs empty, pride emptier. The old man stood over him, hands open, offering to help him up. "Breathe, son. You are fine. The floor caught you." Ryder slapped the hand away and scrambled to his feet. At the front desk, Brooke Delaney had stopped pretending to work. Her hands were pressed over her mouth. On her monitor, security camera recorded the wide angle nobody's phone could see. The whole mat, both men, every step. She glanced at the red recording light and made a decision that would matter more than anyone knew. She hit protect on the file. The second fall came soon after. Ryder charged blind, both hands reaching, all technique abandoned, just humiliation looking for a throat. Harlan stepped off the line, guided the reaching arm past its target, and let the boy's momentum write its own ending. Ryder hit the mat face down, slid, and stopped at the feet of his own live stream tripod. His camera looked down at him. Strangers looked with it. Ryder rose with something broken loose behind his eyes. He grabbed a metal water bottle from the mat's edge and swung it at the old man's skull. The crowd screamed. Harlan swayed inside the arc, trapped the swinging arm, and turned his hip one final time. But this throw was different. Halfway through the fall, Ryder's head was aimed at the concrete lip beyond the mat. Harlan's palm shot out and cupped the back of the boy's neck. He pulled him in. He gave the fall back to the soft vinyl. He laid Ryder down like something fragile. The phone timer sang. Seconds finished. Harlan Whitaker had not thrown a single strike. He stood in the center of the mat, breathing the way men breathe in libraries, and bowed to the boy gasping at his feet. Then he picked up his canvas bag, left the cash untouched under the water bottle, and walked toward the locker room through a silence you could have framed. Ryder stayed down for a moment, staring at the lights. Seconds earlier, he had been a champion. Now he was a meme being born in real time, and somewhere in his chest under the rage lived a feeling he could not name yet. It felt almost like awe. He buried it fast and reached for his anger instead. Anger was familiar. Anger had a father. At the edge of the crowd, the young boy started clapping. Alone at first. Then the kids' class joined, then their parents, then the room, a rolling thunder of hands that Ryder would hear in his sleep. The man in the gray hoodie did not clap. Garrett Nolan just watched the cream-colored back disappear down the hallway and whispered to nobody, "He is still perfect." By that evening, the internet had a new obsession. The full live stream. The slow-motion breakdowns, the freeze frame of an old hand, cradling the neck of the boy who had swung steel at him. Martial arts channels dissected his footwork frame by frame and came back with the same stunned verdict. This is not luck. This is mastery you cannot buy. The clip crossed millions of views under one question repeated in many languages. Who is the janitor? Vaughn Caldwell watched his son slide across a mat on a phone screen, face down in front of the whole world. He watched it twice. He did not call Ryder. He did not ask if the boy was hurt. He scrolled to a name his money kept on speed dial, a name that had buried lawsuits, rivals, and inconvenient stories alike. Elena Vargas answered on the first ring. "Counselor," Vaughn said quietly, "I need you to destroy a janitor." Elena Vargas did not take cases. She took territory. She sat in Vaughn Caldwell's glass office with the live stream playing on a wall screen, watching an old man embarrass her newest retainer's son. She watched it without expression, the way surgeons look at x-rays. "Your son challenged him publicly," she said. "Witnesses. He swung a metal bottle. This is unwinnable." Vaughn slid a folder across the desk. "Then we do not fight the truth," he said. "We replace it." The folder held the architecture of a lie. A medical report, real enough, showing Ryder's sprained shoulder and bruised vertebrae from uncontrolled falls. A statement drafted and waiting in which Ryder remembered being threatened, and a strategy built on one simple fact about the internet. Nobody watches the whole video. "We sue for assault and battery," Vargas said, reading. "Civil court. We claim the janitor is a trained fighter who concealed his skills, provoked a young athlete, and injured him in front of children." She looked up. "I will need the gym's cooperation." Vaughn smiled. "I own the gym's cooperation." Ryder sat through the meeting saying almost nothing. His arm in a sling he had been told to wear everywhere. The sling was theater. His shoulder ached, but it worked. What did not work was sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the old man's palm catching his neck, soft as a whisper, pulling his skull away from the concrete. The man he was about to destroy had protected him mid-throw. Ryder knew it. The footage knew it. "Sign here," Vargas said, and Ryder Caldwell picked up the pen. The new video dropped, expertly cut. Gone was the shove, the bet, the taunting, the swing of the steel bottle. What remained was an old man in a strange gi, throwing a college-aged athlete onto his neck, while children watched from the front row. The caption wrote itself, "Hidden fighter assaults local champion." Local news ran it with a tilted headline. "Older janitor with mysterious combat training injures young athlete at family gym." The anchors used the word disturbing. The comment sections turned like weather. The same internet that had crowned him burned him. Why was a trained killer mopping floors around kids? What was he hiding? Who hires these people? The millions of views of the truth were buried under many more views of the lie. A man with no social media accounts cannot answer that many views. Harlan did not try. He went to work and found his key no longer fit the side door. Brent Callahan met him in the parking lot with an envelope and a speech he had practiced badly. "Liability issue, Harlan. Nothing personal. The board, the insurance, you understand." Harlan looked at the envelope. Years folded into severance. "The Caldwells are also discussing your pension eligibility," Brent added, eyes on the asphalt. "Their lawyer found some paperwork issues. It could all go away, though." He lowered his voice. "They want a public apology on camera. Say you provoked the boy, say you are sorry. Vaughn makes the lawsuit disappear. You keep your retirement." For a long moment, the only sound was a flag rope clinking against its pole. "I mopped that floor for years," Harlan said at last. "Never missed a corner. You tell Mr. Caldwell my knees do not bend that direction." He handed the envelope back unopened and walked to his truck. Brent stood there holding the money like a man holding his own resignation letter. Not everyone believed the new story. The mother of the young boy called the gym to defend him and got voicemail. A handful of members posted the original live stream, pointing at the shove, the bet, the bottle. Their posts gathered views against the millions. Truth was present at the battle. It was just outnumbered. That afternoon, Brent called Brooke into his office and closed the door. The lawsuit named the gym's security system. "Vargas's people want the footage retention policy enforced," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Automatic deletion. Make sure the system is compliant." Brooke understood perfectly. The wide-angle footage, the footage showing the shove, the bottle, the catch, was from a hearing and one click from gone. "Of course," she said. That night, she sat in her car with the silver hard drive in her lap, hands shaking, and made more copies. Ryder stopped posting that week. His comment sections had become a war he could not win. Half mockery, half worship. At dinner, his father talked about the lawsuit the way other fathers talk about football, loud and certain. Ryder pushed food around his plate. "He caught my neck," he said once quietly. Vaughn did not look up. "The footage will be gone," he said. "Eat." The summons arrived by certified mail. Caldwell versus Whitaker. Damages sought a large amount. Harlan read it twice at his kitchen table, then set it down next to a stack of bills and his pension statement. The math was simple and merciless. Even winning would bankrupt him. Lawyers cost more than janitors earn. That night, the old doubts came back wearing new clothes. Years ago, he had walked away because the mats took his son. Now he had stepped on one, and it was taking the rest. His house, his name, his quiet. Maybe the lesson was the same one repeating until he learned it. Everything he loved, the fighting life eventually collected. He took out the old phone that night and held his thumb over the saved voicemail. For the first time in years, he did not press play. He was afraid of what he would hear in it now. Not his son's voice, his own failure underneath it. He set the phone face down on the nightstand, turned off the light, and lay in the dark with his eyes open. The hearing was set soon. Vargas fed the press all week. An anonymous source said the janitor had a violent past. Another source wondered why no dojo had records of him. The story wrote itself into shape, the shape money wanted. The man who had refused to throw a single punch was the most hated old man in the city. He was sitting in the kitchen alone, with cold coffee and the summons when headlights swept the window. Then a second pair, then a third. Car doors closed in the driveway, unhurried. Harlan rose slowly, sued, fired, and famous for all the wrong reasons. He had no idea who would come for him at night. The knock when it came was soft, almost respectful. He opened the door. 3 people stood on the porch in the dark, and years stood behind them. Garrett Nolan, shoulders filling the doorway. Lena Hargrove, silver medal posture, ears flattened by decades of judo. Marcus Langford, tailored coat, gym chain logo on his cap. Nobody spoke. Then Lena stepped forward and hugged the old man so hard the porch light shook. "You stopped answering letters, coach," she said into his shoulder. "So we stopped writing. We came instead." They sat in his kitchen until late. Garrett had come for the challenge and stayed for the lawsuit. He had called the others the night the doctored video dropped. Harlan tried twice to send them home. "This is my mess." Marcus set his coffee down. "Coach, you taught us the first rule of the corner. Nobody fights alone." Harlan looked at 3 faces he had built from nothing. And for once, the old man ran out of arguments. The hearing room was small, but the story was not. So the hallway outside filled with cameras. Judge Everett Langston, a careful man with reading glasses and no patience for theater, called the room to order. Vaughn Caldwell sat behind his lawyer, like a man who had already read the ending. Ryder sat beside him in the sling, eyes down. Harlan came alone in his church suit, hands folded, representing himself because he could afford nothing else. Elena Vargas worked the room like a scalpel. She played the cut on a courtroom screen. She used the phrase concealed combat training. "Mr. Whitaker, what belt do you hold?" "I hold no belt, ma'am." "What rank have you held?" "Rank fades when you stop wearing it." "Answer the question." "Black belt, 3 disciplines." Murmurs. She turned to the judge. "A man with that training is a weapon, Your Honor. A weapon worked beside children for years without disclosure." Harlan said nothing. Slow answers, short answers, just as the truth comes when it is not performing. "Why did a martial arts master spend years pushing a mop, Mr. Whitaker? What were you hiding from?" For the first time, the old man's hands tightened on the table. The room leaned in. Even the judge looked up from his notes. Harlan opened his mouth, closed it again. Some doors do not open in public. Vargas smiled at the silence and let it do her work. No further questions. And that was when the doors at the back of the courtroom actually opened. Garrett Nolan walked up the aisle in a state athletics jacket, and half the room recognized him before he reached the front. Multiple-time national champion, current head coach. He asked to be heard as a character witness, and Judge Langston, curiosity beating procedure, allowed it. Garrett raised his right hand, took the oath, and looked straight at the press row. "My name is Garrett Nolan. The man you have been calling a hidden threat is Harlan Whitaker. We called him the Quiet Hand. He trained me from a young nobody to a national champion. He also trained Lena Hargrove and Marcus Langford." He paused. "Stand up, guys." 2 people rose in the gallery. A murmur became a roar that the judge had to quiet down. Lena Hargrove, Olympic silver, world titles. Marcus Langford, undefeated kickboxer, owner of gyms across states. Vargas was on her feet, objecting to relevance. The judge peered over his glasses. "Counselor, you spent time arguing this man's training history. His training history just stood up. Overruled. You asked what he was hiding from," Garrett said, voice dropping. "I will answer it, because he never will. Years ago, Coach had a 4th student, The best of us. His son, Dylan. Harlan went very still at his table. Dylan was young. He died in a crash on the highway. Driving to the national championships his father spent years preparing him for. Coach buried his boy. He locked his belt in a box. He never coached again. Garrett looked at the old man, and his voice cracked on the next sentence. Anyway, he did not quit fighting because he was dangerous. He quit forgiving himself. There is a difference. At his table, Harlan Whitaker looked down at his open hands. The hands that had taped Dylan's wrists before every tournament. The hands that had carried the casket. Nobody in that room had ever seen the old man cry, and they did not now. But his shoulders dropped finally, like a man setting down something he had carried up a very long hill. The room had gone quiet in a way courtrooms rarely manage. A reporter wiped her eyes with her sleeve. Ryder Caldwell stared at the old man's back, and the sling on his arm suddenly weighed heavily. Then the second door opened. Brooke Delaney came up the aisle holding a silver hard drive like it was made of glass. She had quit Ironclad that morning by text message. Under oath, she told the court about the deleted retention policy, and about the copies she had made. The judge ordered the footage played, the full event, the shove that started it, the cash slapped down, the challenge, the steel bottle swinging at a gray head, and then came the frame the judge asked to see twice. The old man's palm catching the back of Ryder Caldwell's neck, pulling him away from the concrete, laying him down on the soft vinyl like something worth saving. When the lights came up, nobody spoke for full seconds. On the screen, frozen, an old man held a boy's head an inch above ruin. Vargas's story had just been beaten by its own missing footage. In the gallery, the mother of the young boy stood and said loud enough for the record, "That man is the only adult in that gym who ever watched out for my son." The judge let it stand. Vargas asked for a recess. The judge gave her minutes. It took fewer. Whatever was said at the plaintiff's table was said through teeth, and when the room reconvened, Elena Vargas stood with a face like wet cement. "Your Honor, my client moves to withdraw the complaint with prejudice." The judge removed his glasses. I imagined he might. He looked at Vaughn Caldwell for a long, unhurried moment. This court also imagines the city attorney will enjoy the question of who edited that video. Withdrawal granted. The gavel came down like a clean throw. The room began to move. Reporters racing for the hallway. Vaughn already barking at Vargas. Harlan sat motionless, Lena's hand on his shoulder. Years of silence broken open in a single morning. And then over the noise, a chair scraped. Ryder Caldwell was on his feet. He pulled the sling over his head, dropped it on the table, and said words nobody expected. "Your Honor, may I speak?" The judge could have refused. The case was withdrawn, the morning already historic, but he looked at the boy standing without his sling and nodded once. Ryder did not go to the witness stand. He turned to face the gallery and the cameras he had spent years feeding. "Everything Mr. Nolan said is true. Everything Brooke showed you is true. I shoved him because he was a janitor and I thought janitors were furniture." His voice broke and he let it. "He never threw one punch at me. The third fall I was going headfirst into concrete. He caught me. The man I was trying to ruin caught me." He faced Harlan last. "I picked that day for the fight. I did not know what that date was. Now I do, and I cannot give it back." He bowed, clumsy and unpracticed. The first honest bow of his life. "I am sorry, Mr. Whitaker." Harlan studied him for a long moment and said nothing at all. Some apologies have to season before they are answered. The consequences arrived like dominoes that had been waiting politely in line. The State Athletic Commission reviewed the unedited footage and stripped Ryder's regional titles for conduct. The steel bottle alone ended the debate. His sponsors were gone. The supplement brand released a statement containing the word values. Vaughn Caldwell fared worse. The city attorney opened an inquiry into the doctored video, and his partners, smelling trouble, backed out of projects. The Ironclad board, suddenly brave, voted Brent Callahan out. He packed his framed check himself. Brooke Delaney turned down job offers from news stations and took one from a law office. The Ironclad board called Harlan Whitaker into the office that used to ignore him. They offered him the head coaching position, full salary, his name on the wall. Harlan listened with his hands folded. "I will take it," he said, "on one condition. Nights, the main mat belongs to the neighborhood. Free self-defense classes for every kid who walks in. No fees, no cuts." The board agreed before he finished. "One more thing," Harlan added. "It has a name, The Dylan Whitaker program. Nobody in the room argued with that. On the first night of the program, children sat cross-legged on the main mat, the young boy front and center. Harlan walked in carrying the wooden box and a hammer. First, he drove a small nail into the wall by the door and hung a photograph face out where it would watch every class. A boy grinning under a tournament banner, forever about to win. Then Harlan opened the box in front of everyone, lifted out the old black belt, and tied it around his waist with hands that did not shake. Years of silence ended in 2 quiet knots. First lesson, he told the kids, voice carrying to the corners the way it used to. The strongest thing you will ever learn on this mat is how to walk away from a fight. The second strongest is how to make sure you can. Heads nodded like it was scripture. In the back, leaning on the doorframe, Garrett Nolan grinned at Lena Hargrove. The quiet hand was loud again. He was halfway through teaching falls when the gym door opened. Ryder Caldwell stood there in plain gray sweats. No logos, no entourage, no camera. The room went still. The children knew his face. Everyone knew his face. Ryder crossed to the edge of the mat, stopped at the tape line like a man at a border, and bowed. "Mr. Whitaker, teach me the right way. I will start from nothing." Harlan looked at him for a long, level moment. Then he pointed at the supply closet. "Grab a mop first," he said. "The floor teaches humility." Lesson 1 starts there. Ryder Caldwell, former champion, sponsorships gone, walked to the closet and picked up a mop in front of the children. And here is the strange part. Nobody laughed. The boy who had filmed an old man falling now moved a bucket in careful lines, while the old man taught children how to stand. The internet would have called it content. The mat called it justice. Later, the lights of Ironclad burned warm against the dark. Through the front glass you could see the main mat crowded with children, in lines that started crooked and stood straight. The Dylan Whitaker program had a waiting list. Then it had a second location. It grew. Garrett taught in the city. Lena flew in and taught falling, which she called the most honest skill on earth. Marcus paid every bill and refused every interview. Ryder Caldwell was there every night, and he was easy to miss, which was new for him. He wore plain white like every beginner. He had asked the commission not to expedite his appeal. He swept the mats before class and mopped them after, in long, even arcs that never crossed their own path, because he had asked the old man to show him how. His followers dwindled. He never posted again. Once a reporter cornered him in the parking lot and asked if this was a redemption arc. Ryder thought about it. "No," he said. "It is just the work." Harlan Whitaker still arrived early. Some habits are load-bearing. He still read the floor while he walked it, still folded his rags in perfect thirds. But the photograph by the door faced out now, and he had started talking to it again. Small things, scores and stances, and which kid finally kept her chin down. On the anniversary, the program held no classes. The mat stayed empty, and the lights stayed on one night a year for a champion who never got to arrive. Nobody scheduled it. Everybody honored it. The young boy, a bit older, earned his first stripe. When Harlan tied it on, the boy whispered something only the two of them heard. Harlan laughed, a real one, from the chest. Later, Brooke asked him what the kid had said. The old man smiled and kept mopping a floor he no longer had to mop. Some things are between a coach and his fighter. That answer was the whole story if you were listening. Brent Callahan manages a storage facility on the south side. Vaughn Caldwell settled with the city attorney quietly, the way rich men do, but the towers stopped going up with his name on them. Power, it turns out, is also a floor. It only holds you while you respect it. People still stop Harlan on the street and ask about the seconds. They want to hear about the throws. He always tells them the same thing. The fight was never the point. For years, a master swept floors in silence, and nobody asked his name. It took seconds of violence to make the world curious about a man that seconds of kindness would have revealed. Do not wait for the mat to find out who is standing next to you. So, here is the question this story leaves behind. If you were Harlan standing in that puddle with people laughing, would you have stepped onto the mat, or would you have kept mopping? Tell us in the comments, because the answers say more about us than about him. If this story moved you, share it with someone who feels invisible at their job. They might need to hear that worth does not wear a uniform. And subscribe, because there are more stories like this one waiting. And we tell a new one every week. Real talk. The reason I told this story is my grandpa worked maintenance for years. Smartest man I ever met. And people talked to him like furniture. Somewhere out there is a janitor, a cashier, a nobody carrying a whole legend quietly. Be the person who asks their name,